Hi, I'm Billy Mitchell, and this is the Daily Scoop podcast, home of all the news you need to know at the intersection of government and technology.
Today on the Daily Scoop podcast from the Scoop News Group, Paul Lawrence on the progress of VA's EHRM rollout. The Deputy Secretary shares what's to come and much more. It's Tuesday, August 25th, 2026. And now let's dive into the day's top headlines. Sam Corcos, the Treasury Department's chief information officer who entered the federal government as a member of the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, has taken on a trio of roles within the General Services Administration. Corcos now serves as Acting Director of Technology Transformation Services, Acting Deputy Commissioner for the Federal Acquisition Service, and Acting Assistant Commissioner of Login-dot-gov, according to the GSA. A GSA spokesperson told FedScoop that as a current federal agency CIO, Sam Corcos has led complex technology operations and worked across government to advance the president's tech priorities. Before Corcos was made Treasury CIO in May 2025, he was a co-founder of Levels, a health tech company. Since joining Treasury as a special advisor in March 2025, Corcos has sought access to government data and, according to Wired, made efforts to unify the API at the IRS. The GSA spokesperson went on to add that the Trump administration is focused on making government more effective, efficient, and responsive, and TTS will continue to be an important part of that effort, adding that Corcos will help to advance that mission. Outgoing federal CIO Greg Barbaccia has led TTS since February, and Greg Hogan, formerly the OPM CIO, has overseen Login-dot-gov since April. Now moving on to other news, lawmakers are pushing back on immigration and customs enforcement plans to equip in-the-field agents with gloves that deliver electric shocks. Members of the House Committee on Homeland Security sent a letter last week to Department of Homeland Security Secretary Markwayne Mullin, urging him to intervene and halt the procurement. The signatories include Benny Thompson of Mississippi, the committee's top Democrat, as well as Representatives Luis Correa of California and Sri Thanadar of Michigan, ranking members of the Border Security and Enforcement and Oversight, Investigations, and Accountability subcommittees, respectively. The representatives warned of the possibility of the technology being incorrectly used or abused by officers, resulting in injury or death, per the letter. In acquisition planning documents published earlier this month, DHS said it intends to invest up to $20 million in compliant technologies as generated low-output voltage emitter devices for Homeland Security investigations officers and enforcement removal operations agents. The contract is expected to be awarded later this year. A DHS spokesperson said in an email, quote, ICE is constantly assessing the needs of our officers in the field to ensure that they have the tools and equipment necessary to safely arrest and remove criminal illegal aliens from our country. Every decision is made with careful consideration and appropriately reviewed to ensure that any technology ICE utilizes is consistent with all applicable law enforcement policies and standards, unquote. The gloves are low optics and simple enough to use, turning on with the push of a button in just a second, or even faster when operating in standby mode, according to promotional material from Compliant Technologies. While the vendor says the devices, quote, pose no immediate threat or significant health risk, unquote, the company does warn that use can lead to increased blood pressure and heart rate, as well as changes in blood chemistry and heart rhythm. Compliant Technologies recommended law enforcement avoid using the devices on certain members of the community, such as pregnant women or small children.
Throughout 2026, you cast your nominations for the FedScoop 50, and the results are in. Hundreds of top C-level executives from across the government tech landscape are now up for vote to see who will be honored among this year's FedScoop 50. Voting is open now and runs through September 25th. Make your voice heard to help us select who will be recognized on this year's list.
One of those nominees in the prestigious Golden Gov category for this year is VA Deputy Secretary and currently acting CIO Paul Lawrence. Lawrence joined the Daily Scoop podcast to discuss his top priorities in both roles, namely the continued rollout of the department's modernized electronic health record with Oracle. Let's go now to that conversation with Paul Lawrence. Dr. Lawrence, thanks so much for joining me. It's great to have you here in our studio. How's it going?
Really good. Thanks for inviting me. Happy to talk about all things interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I should note that we've brought you here because you are a nominee on this year's FedScoop 50 Awards in the prestigious Golden Gov category. So congratulations on that. Really excited to honor you that way. And, we'll see how voting goes, but I would imagine, there's a good chance you'll be up there at the end, but kudos to you and congrats on that.
Yeah, no, thanks. It's an impressive group. Just being in the group is exciting unto itself. The achievements others describe were pretty impressive, although I think we're doing some amazing things at VA. So that's great to get a chance to talk about.
Yeah, so I'm excited to dig into that. I should mention voting for FedScoop 50 is open through the end of September 25th. So go ahead and vote for Dr. Lawrence here. But outside of that, you're an important figure in our space, particularly not only in your deputy secretary role, but you're performing the duties of the CIO currently, which is a hallmark role in our community. So I want to sort of dive in and just kind of start with a broader question. That's two very important roles you're filling. Talk to us about your priorities in both of those, particularly as they relate to tech.
Certainly. Well, if I begin by thinking about my role as a deputy secretary, by law, I'm in charge of the electronic health record.
Sure.
And this was reinforced by Secretary Collins when he first showed up, got confirmed and figured out, hey, what are we going to do with this? He pointed somebody accountable, and that was also me. So I sort of by law as well as the direction of the secretary. And that is a tremendously significant achievement working on the VA. I would say it's the most important thing we're doing. The secretary would say it's one of several. So we often have this kind of rhetorical conversation. So that's our focus, to really implement and deploy the electronic health record, which, as you know, started under President Trump's first term. Previous administration really let it go dormant, and we had to restart it so that our veterans can have a record that has all their information from the time they're in the military service up into the present when they come to see us. We know veterans like this. They don't want to tell us the same stories over and over again. They don't want us to lose their tests. And when they travel, they expect that we have the information about them when they move to go to a different place. And I was just reading about a veteran today who lost his drugs, came into one of our facilities. Fortunately, the other facility had the new electronic health record. It took 15 minutes to figure out what he needed, and he didn't want to leave because he didn't imagine it could be done that quickly. So we know the value of this, as well as what it'll be to our providers. Doctors want to practice medicine, not hunt and peck and search and copy and paste. And we know that, gotten that feedback directly. So that's my main job. You're right. As the acting CIO, I'm very much focused on executing the technology part of the secretary's perspective, put veterans at the center of everything they do. And we know that things like the website and the way they interact with us make that possible. And we've got to improve our game there. So much of my time there is spent with our team going, how do we actually make these experiences better for our veterans when they interact with us through technology?
It's a really tough portfolio. And as you mentioned, you said it's, the EHR is, a number one or potentially number two priority. I think across government, it might be, up there in a top 5 list of technology systems or technology priorities. It's huge, it's massive, and it's very important.
Right. And when you think about it, we often forget to tell our story, but we are the largest integrated healthcare company in the country, which might mean the world. And we are essentially doing something that's going to transform how we deliver medicine. And if you remember this, because we've kind of letting this go, VA was always the leader in medicine. We invented, I learned about this, the GLP shot. We just didn't market it. We invented nicotine patches and all these sort of things. So one of the really cool byproducts about having a record with all the veterans' information is the innovation we can sort of kickstart. So it's not too trite to say this is like going to change the future of medicine. So this is a really big deal. And so it's very important we get it right.
That's fantastic. Thinking more broadly again, you have a very important role. Leadership is vastly important at that sort of level. Talk to me about how you think of leadership as the deputy secretary, being that number 2 leader in the Department of the VA. What do you see as your job as a leader, and how do you go about that?
So first, you always have to understand the deputy secretary. I implement the agenda of the secretary. So it's very important. So I never forget that every day. And he's very good in terms of being clear and reminding us what needs to be done. The how, though, is your own style. So what I try to think about and talk about all the time is say, there's 3 tenets in my style. We're going to communicate what matters. And the secretary does a good job, so it's easy to build on. We're going to then articulate what you do in that role. Put veterans at the center of everything you do. What does that mean you do? You do this faster and better. And then we're going to measure. because we really are responsible for delivering outcomes, certain things at certain time schedule. And that's where people get very, very frustrated with us. When we told people we were going to start to redeploy the new electronic health record, this level of skepticism was overwhelming and quite frankly disheartening, because people would always say, you always underdeliver, you never do these things on time. So we know the importance of being on time really, really matters. So you lay that over with what are the objectives, the outcomes we have to deliver, the timeliness we have to deliver, the measurable benefits that we know the veterans are looking to us to do. So those two combinations, I think enable us to really have a sense of what we're doing and then go do it.
So let's, we started with the HR and sort of, you shared some of your responsibility there. You mentioned how this administration is really focused on getting things back on track and deploying and kind of getting that ground traction. Talk to me what you've seen as the successes and lessons learned in that time, and how you're using that to kind of look forward and continue that progress.
Certainly. Well, it begins with what I'll call intentional leadership. The secretary was very clear when he got into office. He said, listen, everybody implements an electronic health record. We can do it too. We're unique. We're special, but not unique. So we can do this. And that's what our intention is. So he pretty much threw down the gauntlet and said, this is what we're going to do, and revised the schedule. Prior to me getting on board, about 6 weeks after the schedule was out for 2026. We're going to really accelerate and do 13 sites, deploying 13 sites in the first year, 27, raise it to 26 sites, and then about 30, so that we're all done by 2031. This was a huge thing because previously they were all excited in late 24. They're like, hey, we're really going to try hard and deploy in 4 sites next year. And everybody was like, it'll just take forever to get done. So that was really important. The other thing he said to make clear is we are standardizing. No more customization, no more changing. We are standardizing, no kidding.
Yeah.
This is invalued enterprise-wide systems, as everybody knows, but yet we didn't seem to be able to do that. So that's set in motion. And then finally, sort of like what I began to realize was you really had to go out and talk to the folks who this was happening to. So since I got here and I got this job, I've been to the sites that over and over again that we're deploying in 26. By the time they've all gone live, I've been to each of them more than 2 times, some 3, some more, and then talking to everybody. I estimate, because I keep track of this, as of today, I've talked to over 1,300 of our providers and staff about what they're going through. And I don't mean shaking their hand, taking a picture. I mean sitting with them for an hour, listening to how is it going, taking what's working well and sharing it, dealing with what they're frustrated and going and resolving it. So understanding what our team was going through and figuring out how to do that. And a really interesting byproduct of this is really coming to the conclusion that our team is really good. Like given direction and given insight of what they need, they're really good. So here's an interesting contrast. The 26 sites, the sites that were going live in 26, had natural skepticism, had to deal with resistance and tell them whatever. Now that I'm going to the sites that'll go live in 27, they're all there. How fast can we go? When can we do this? And so if 26 will sort of nurture me along, 27 is standing out of the way of the speeding car because they're ready to go, and they realize they're talking to the sites that are going live and they're hearing from their colleagues. It's faster, it's easier, it's all on one screen. And it's just really exciting to see. So I would say the direction, following through, recognizing the leadership, and then encouraging and quite frankly, getting them the resources and the information they need.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic to hear about that momentum. I think that's key in any sort of technology adoption to get that going. And I'm glad you brought it up that, you're going there and you're meeting with these individuals, because I noticed, you're pretty vocal and active on LinkedIn, and you share quite a lot, which is great. That sort of transparency, again, I think is key for this sort of thing, to show what's going on behind the scenes. But you're really busy. It seems like you're every week or every couple of weeks at another site.
No, it's every week. And you're right. I want to show the pictures and explain and tell the story of like, we have great teams, and look, they're working these issues. And you've probably seen they adopt themes for this. They make it special, and it feels real. I just came from Minneapolis. They had our St. Cloud. They've adopted the theme of a loon. It's a bird that apparently on the lake, and everything was built around that. And it was calming, and it just really, I came from Omaha. They had adopted an astronaut, like one mission, an inability to succeed. I met Nebraska's only astronaut. So it's really exciting to see how they're embracing it and what they're doing, and really drawing everybody into appreciating kind of how big and challenging this is, but how the rewards will be so great when we're all done.
That's fantastic. Thinking again about tech more broadly, you know, I know that EHR takes a large deal of time off of your plate, but when it comes to other tech initiatives, obviously there's plenty going on with AI. Cyber is always a key thing, whether that's zero trust or the new post-quantum, you know, initiative. What's sort of continuing to fill your plate on that
Certainly.
side?
Well, if you think about what I said about the secretary comes in and realizes, you know, in his interview with the president, says, what do you want me to do? And the president says, congratulations, you have the job. I want you to take great care of our veterans. End of the job interview. He says, okay, so how does that work? He comes back and says, we're going to put veterans at the center of everything we do. And that drives us to think about what veterans want, not the organization or what you want. So the more we talk to them about this, hold town halls, get their feedback, you realize the interaction with us is important. So I alluded to this early, how they come to us through va.gov needs to be better, and they're telling this. So I have no news to announce, but we're going to be rolling out a series of things that make that experience better, from the time you log on to the ease by which you can find information, by the modern approach we have to sort of showing you we have your information so you don't have to repeat it over and over again. So we know that interaction is key. We also know they tell us stuff about we want our monetary benefits faster. And when we dig behind this, probably going to laugh given your technology focus, but a lot of it is simply acquiring information. So if you served in the military, we have to get your military records and your medical records from DOW. So that's not an AI problem. That's just two large organizations connecting. But if we can do that, we will radically change your experience, making it faster. And we know, related to that, once we get your records, we have to validate that you in fact did get hurt, for example, okay? What we often do is send you out for yet another medical exam. In town halls, veterans historically don't like that because they say you have our records. Well, yeah, but it's hidden in there. And as people flip through it, they decide we can't find it. Just have somebody go do this. We know technology can read images and things much, much faster. So if we could get the records faster and then see what's in there faster, both technology achievements, then we will change that experience significantly. So our goal is to simply make it easier and more, quite frankly, attractive to deal with us electronically. So that's kind of what's out there in terms of how we're thinking about the big challenge.
And I think a key part of it is you guys seem to have brought on some great people to work on your technology portfolio. I've spoken to the Deputy CIO, Zach Schwartz, who's great. And I know you have a candidate awaiting the Senate sort of pipeline confirmation.
Right. You know, Senate moves in its own world, but we have great candidates who want to come and do things, and they know what's here, right? We have an enormous IT budget. We have incredibly complicated problems and challenges that are exciting to veterans and non-veterans. We have money to access all these great tools, and the challenge has always been, can somebody figure out what to do? We were really good at what I call science projects. People would buy stuff and play around with them. They didn't scale. There's 17 million veterans. We provide healthcare to 9 million. You have to begin to think about what's going on in terms of scale. So now you see and you reference them, leaders who understand what that means. So it's very, very exciting.
That's great. So as we close out, you know, would love to look forward a bit. It's currently the end of or middle of August. I feel like it's the end, but it's squarely in the middle. But as we look forward through the rest of 2026, and obviously the fiscal year is wrapping up shortly, but as we look forward, whether it's fiscal year 2027 or calendar year 2027 coming up, what are some of the things you're most excited about that maybe we haven't talked about, or double tapping on some of the ones we already have?
It's probably going to be double tap. Our areas of focus are pretty clear, right? The electronic health record will continue to roll out. So by the time the year's over, we'll be in 13 additional sites, which, put this in perspective, for the entire 6 years before we all showed up, there were 6 sites.
Yeah.
So we'll have doubled it in 1 year. We're going to continue to do that. And this is important because we've got to get to 170 quick, fast, and hurry, right? And what's really neat about that is what you'll see happen then is with the Oracle record, we're now going to have all the cool stuff Oracle's going to do, AI, advanced medicine, and the like. So our doctors are going to have awesome tools. So this is why it's so important. We're going to change your experience with us through the va.gov. We're going to go get your records and make that a profoundly faster experience. And along the way, we're going to do other things that have to do with fraud detection and the like, using advanced tools to make sure that doesn't happen. And then it's always going to be continue to provide our veterans world-class benefits and healthcare. And that's all we're going to focus on and just keep perfecting it. So it'll be little things over and over again that change the experience.
But it seems like those are the things that matter. So those are the things you want to chip away at. So
that's right. And veterans tell us that they are not shy at all. At town halls, they tell us that directly and remind us of that. But seriously, by and large, most of the town halls are full of compliments for how great the care is. But you're right. They know that hard to call us. It's hard to park. Get lost. So we know there's lots to do to make the experience even better. And that's what we're focused on.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you for doing that as the son of a veteran. And also thank you for sharing about it here today on the Daily Scoop podcast.
And if he's still with us, make sure he got his benefits.
Yes, he is. He is. And I'll share this interview with him and he'll be delighted to see. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
For more on the rollout of the VA's electronic health record modernization program, make sure to visit FedScoop.com.
Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Daily Scoop podcast, available on all podcast platforms. If you've already rated the podcast on your platform of choice, thanks so much. High ratings and good reviews of the show help more people to find it. The Daily Scoop podcast is a production of the Scoop News Group in Washington, D.C. Carlin Fisher helped put the show together, and the entire Scoop News Group team contributes. We'll be back again tomorrow with more top headlines. Until then, I'm your host, Billy Mitchell. Thanks so much for listening.